video I'm going to be removing the front wing from my VW T4, and we're going to be looking inside. This is a common problem, but you get a build-up of soil and leaves and stuff all the way around there inside the top of the wheel arch, and that rots it through. The reason for this is this little drainage hole here. You can see I've got some already wanting to go in there, but I think it's a bit of a design flaw, not quite sure, but it's a very common problem. So if you own a T4, you want to remove this wing, check the inside of here, clear it out. So I'm going to show you now how to get this removed, and then let's have a look at restoring the inside of it, because I'm sure it'll be rotting. For this, I'm just going to clean this up now as good as I can with a brush, get all this dirt out of here, and then we'll just treat any little bits of rust that we can. That section there is going to be chopped out and re-welded. That's just a rot hole that I'm currently welding up. Finely crafted piece of 1.5mm sheet mild steel, and this is going to go just in the rot hole that I've cut out. I'm going to use some tape just to hold it in place while I tack it somewhere away from the tape. So I've welded the replacement patch panel under the wheel arch there. Knocked the welds back with a grinder just to make them look a bit better. Welded it here. Don't look too closely at my welds. I'm not a welder. In fact, I only did it for the first time a couple of weeks ago. That's the patch panel. Should be strong enough. I also did a little corner there because I found that was rotten. This area is not as bad as it first looked. So for the moment, I'm just going to treat this rust up and repaint it. What I'm using here is Hammerite Coup rust. This is great stuff. What this does is it converts any remaining rust to a non-rusty surface ready to paint on. So I'm just going to paint this on all the areas. What I'm going to paint this with is Hammerite Direct to Rust metal paint. I am going to paint my new welding job with it, but I'll then cover that in something like this stone chip shield. That's going to protect the wheel arch and the metal from stone chips. Okay, so that and that and that all painted, and while they're drying I'm going to turn to the front wing here and just try and get this cleaned up as much as possible. I'm going to hit this with the wire brush, get as much of that off as I can, and then it's the same process as that. I'm going to treat it with a coup rust, and then once that's dried I'm going to paint it, although I'll probably spray paint this just because of time constraints. That's about as good as it's going to get. I've knocked off as much as I can. There's no loose stuff at all. Unfortunately, the wheel arch itself wasn't as good as I thought it was. Ideally, you'd weld in a new piece of metal here, but I don't have the right shape, I don't have the right metal. So I'm going to rebuild this with fiberglass. That'll be good enough for the moment. But first, I'm going to treat all the rust here and then repaint this whole thing. Okay, so the coup rust is drying now, and this paint here has dried. So I'm going to put a couple of coatings of stone chip shield on the inside of my wheel arch here. Get this all protected. That might be quite hard to see. I think the lighting's not great, but that's looking pretty good in there. So back to this now. The coup rust has dried. You can see it's almost transformed this whole area into a black sort of a colour. So I'm going to whack a little bit of anti-rust primer on it, and then just a top coat there. That is looking just about as good as I think it's going to get. The actual wheel arch here, I think it's probably going to be easier to do that last when it's actually on the van. Just to see the other side here. That's a lot better than having all that exposed rust. At least that's protected a little bit more now. And the only other thing I would like to suggest, or like to mention here, is this whole design flaw with the hole here, the drainage hole and the build up here. I'm not sure if that's how it came from factory, but I've ordered some pipes, one for each side, this and the passenger side, and it's sort of a pipe that attaches into this hole. It goes down here and down this little channel here, so that drainage can go down there instead of building up inside here. I don't know, perhaps some of them came from the factory with those, I'm not quite sure, but it seems like a really good idea. So just check back on my channel for another video of me installing them. Unfortunately, I've got to wait for them to be shipped from Germany. For now, what I'm going to do is get this wing back on the van. Right, it's actually a couple of months later from when I was last filming, and this is how long it's taken to come in the post. So what I'm going to do now is take this back off, and then we can fit these drainage pipes here. There's one for each side. There's the top bit that goes in the drainage plug at the top, and then just zip ties and hooks. Well, yeah, you can see 2 months worth of build-up. That's what we want to avoid. That hole is much more round. That fits in nicely. Looks like actually the aerial on my van is in the wrong hole. That's the nice round shape. That's like an oval shape, which you would expect for something going at that angle through it. Like so. So I'm going to work on just moving this back to there. Yeah, you can see it's sort of sloped as well. That's supposed to be up like that. Yeah, that's definitely the way to go. That hole just lines up a lot better with that. Somebody put that on the wrong one. It's got those little notches here. It's actually pretty clever. So all the drainage is going to go in there, down the drainage tube here, and then it's just going to go nicely out onto the road there in front of the wheel. Just going to whack a little bit of this body filler on the wheel arch. That's the finished product. Not a professional bodywork job, as you can tell. I'm not really a bodywork kind of guy. That's a little bit wonky there still. But really, who's going to notice? It looks alright for the moment. And at some point, I will have to chop all this rot out and replace it with a patch panel like this. That's a job for another day, but I'm glad now that's all restored inside there. Those pipes that fit this whole area has now been sorted out and should be good for another few years. And I would recommend anyone else with a T4 do something similar to this, with it being such a common problem. But I'm going to leave that there for now, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.